Day 495 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a quick look at those losses as the Russian army is now sitting on more than 230,000 combat losses. Bearing in mind again, this figure does not include the wounded in action losses for the Russian army. Then as for hardware, 5 tanks, 11 APVs, 32 artillery, and 1 air defense system, and even a chopper. And as we know, hardware losses like choppers, jets, and air defense systems are not easily replaceable, particularly for Russia, considering all of the sanctions imposed against Russia on specialist components. Which means a desperate Russia has to do whatever they can to source anything they can. For instance, most recently, a Russian channel reported Russia was pulling back one of its Su-30 fighter jets from the Ugandan Air Force. Although it's likely a heavily under-maintained jet. In fact, one of these such aircrafts, another Su-30, just crashed and burned today in Venezuela. Oh, and just to add a bit of insult to injury here, fun fact, the Antonov AN-124 cargo plane used by Russia to transport the Sukhoi jet from Uganda back to Russia is a Ukrainian-produced cargo plane, which just goes to show as yet another example of how Russia's military supply chain's reliance on international partners for chips, components, and cargo planes is a severely dangerous strategy to find yourself in as an aggressor nation on the international stage. Then we'll head back across to the map and we'll start out in Russia today. So an explosion that caused a massive crater was reported in Krasnodar in near a Russian airfield right there. Now, it's not precisely clear what caused the crater, but this base is home to a Russian aviation assault regiment, which deploys 2 squadrons of Su-25 strike aircraft against Ukraine. It's also known to launch the Iranian-produced Shahed drones from this location as well. And given the great distance from the front lines, it may have resulted from a malfunction in fired munition from Russia. Then we'll head across to the Ukrainian map today as Russia has been shelling numerous communities along the border of Sumy, the Sumy Oblast in Ukraine, which is just adjacent to Russia's Kursk Oblast. And this is unfortunately an all too common occurrence for many months now, as Russia appears to want to communicate that they still have some border forces positioned on the Russian side, albeit they're normally under-equipped volunteer border forces. Then we'll head on down the map to the southern front there. So, as some reports suggest that the Ukrainian army has continued to advance in the direction of Berdyansk and Melitopol. And on the southeast front line or nearby to there, so the AFU were able to continue their advance in the direction of Priutne from the Levadne side, but also Staromyorska from the Makarivka side. And so recently the Russians have transferred large reserves to this direction and have conducted numerous counterattacks in this region at this stage. However, they have been ending up just purely in vain. And then as for the Orikhiv axis, a little further to the west here, although not yet still reflected on the map, the Ukrainian forces have entered the main trench defenses, so the first line of trench defenses near Robotine. So we'll zoom right in for this one here. And the Russians are trying to, or doing whatever they can to hopefully, in their mind, dislodge them. And so these compromised Russian trenches or Russian trench positions are predominantly on the northwest of the settlement. And so the remaining Russian forces have retreated to their 2 other main defensive lines just north of the town. And something I haven't spoken about for a while in this region, so the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So I'll zoom out to give you a bit of better context there at Enerhoda. So here we go. As currently, Ukraine is preparing for the worst, really, preparing for an explosion at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant at the hands of the Russian army, compromising the safety of the plant. As Ukrainian intelligence claims that 4 out of the 6 reactors have been mined by the Russian army. Now, Russia has occupied the plant since its invasion into Ukraine earlier last year. And so at this point, Ukraine won't put anything past Russia in terms of jeopardizing the safety of the plant and therefore the larger region. And then just lastly on the southern front today, I'll mention, so quite a bit further down from Vasilivka. So the AFU took out a Russian Tor surface-to-air missile system with drones spotted indirect fire, destroying it, which is impressive accuracy for artillery fire from about 14 kilometers away from the front line. Then moving across to the adjacent Kherson Oblast, so some Ukrainian units still maintain a presence on the south side of the Antonivsky Bridge. So we'll load that up there. So the Russian MOD, so the Russian Ministry of Defense, has painted a very positive picture of these events, stating it is under control and really nothing to worry about. However, a bunch of Russian sources close to the ground continue to maintain a more grim and realistic picture or assessment of the situation in contrast to the Russian MOD, effectively stating that the situation is radically different than what the Russian MOD suggests, and that it still remains a large concern for the largely Russian-occupied South, and especially for them to be infiltrated in this way. Then we'll head across to some news for today, slightly shorter video, but Prigozhin's troll farms in St. Petersburg of Russia are looking for some fresh new ownership, as Russia now seeks to remove any control that Prigozhin and of course his Wagner PMC forces at large have over Russia. And given that troll farms are designed to misinform or create its own political narratives online, it makes a lot of sense that Russia would want to take ownership of these outfits or assets now. And so, as like most enterprises taken over by the state government, and particularly the Russian state government, it's likely to be run less efficiently and filled with even more debilitating corruption. In other words, the quality output from the troll farms probably will go down a notch. I mean, they're pretty bad sometimes already, but I see it as a win. Oh, and so for this news story, Putin and the Russian government won't just stop there either. To consolidate their power after the events of Wagner's mutiny last weekend, as Putin has also seen to it that the suspended operations of the Wagner recruitment centers in Russia now. So Putin and the Russian government have put a stop to that. And even on top of that, Putin terminated the contract of Prigozhin's company that provides catering services to the Russian military. And that's right. So when you've heard the term in the past that Prigozhin was Putin's chef, that's because he actually was, a long, long time ago. But the overarching point here is that the trust has clearly gone between these two, completely dissipated, which is actually a decisive win for Ukraine as well. Then in some other news, now I was going to put this one in the funny section, but it really wouldn't be the nice thing to do. So there are several recent reports and news articles about Chechen leader Kadyrov's ill health and even death. But getting to the bottom of this, it appears that many of these claims have been exaggerated. However, Kadyrov is suffering from what appears to be reported as kidney and liver problems. So what does Kadyrov do when he hears about this, making the runs or the rounds online? So in order to dispel these myths, Kadyrov took to social media, as he would, in an attempt to squash any rumors about ill health. But ironically, he just went on a rant about how life is short instead. And even in some video clips, you can see his bruised hand from the hospitalized fluid drips as well. So perhaps he was under a lot of stress. I mean, Kadyrov was only in Ukraine for about 30 days before he seemingly came close to kicking the bucket. So maybe it's no wonder at this point that when he first made it to Ukraine at the end of March, start of June, he saw the tough situation for what it really was and almost immediately requested for a transfer to border force protection inside of Russia instead. But just prior to all of these health concerns being raised about Kadyrov, I was actually hoping and actually expecting to see him make some really poor decisions on the front line. But as it turns out now, we may never get to see much of this TikTok army leader's presence and military ineptitude at all now. Then, in another Russian military mobilization blunder segment of sorts, here we have a Russian mobilized soldier, 62 years young, as Russia continues to scrape the bottom of the barrel with mobilizing men over the age of 60 into the Russian army. And this guy didn't last long at all in the fight. He surrendered within just 2 weeks of being deployed to Ukraine. So officially, this guy is a POW, prisoner of war, right now, and now is getting treated a lot better by Ukraine as a POW with regular meals and a warm bed at night. And for me personally, even after all of this time, for some reason, I still continue to expect to see elite Russian Spetsnaz units or personnel somewhere near on the front line kicking butt. But instead, we continue to still get things like this from the so-called second best army in the world. Then moving on, we'll head over to the lighter side of things today as I came across this little chestnut of a video showing Ukraine's latest biological warfare capabilities. So, just some cute little beetles with bullets strapped to their backs. And I'm actually just impressed with the Ukrainian soldiers' tape-in precision, if you will, on this one. Then just a quick funny to round it all off today, guys. So, Russian state media TV is at it once again. So first of all, the other day they said Russia didn't know about the coup attempts from last weekend. Then they said that the US knew but never told them and were angry about that. And now some of them say that Russia knew about the mutiny attempts 2 days before it actually happened. So not even Russian state media TV can make up their minds on the narrative now. Which is all actually just classic Russian rhetoric as they seek to play every single angle as they attempt to position themselves to look good and save face, all the while not realizing that as soon as you play the contrarian or the opposite angle in an argument, you just lose all credibility. So thanks for watching, guys. It's not my best or brightest video today, as I'm severely deficient on sleep this week, so early into the week. So I'll sort that out and I'll be back the next day or two. So thanks again for watching. Please leave a like and a comment, and I really do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.